Welcome to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. I'm Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. At Finstrat, we provide CFO-led accounting, finance, and reporting services to assist clients monetize their business. Stick around to the end of the podcast and I'll share how you can be our next guest. Now on to the show. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Innovators and Investors Podcast. I'm your host, Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. Really excited because with us today we have France Hoang. France is the co-founder and CEO of BoodleBox, as well as also part of the founding team of Fluid Law Firm. France, welcome to the podcast.
Kristian, it's great to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And so with that, why don't we start with BoodleBox? Would love to hear the mission and the problem you guys are solving.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think great entrepreneurs are driven by desire to serve. Like yourself, I've served in uniform, I've served in other positions. I think great entrepreneurs are also on a mission, right? And at BoodleBox, our mission is really to build the very best collaborative AI platform for the college classroom. AI is absolutely disrupting education at the moment. It's causing professors to rethink how they teach. It's causing students to rethink how they approach education in good ways and in disruptive ways. And we're partnering with all those folks to provide a platform that enables the responsible use of AI in the classroom.
And so what's been the evolution of BoodleBox? Was it clear on day one that was the company's focus, or did it evolve?
It was absolutely not clear on day one, and it absolutely evolves. As you well know in your own entrepreneurial journeys, Kristian, right? Best laid plans, right? Change. We built BoodleBox. Boodle AI has been around several years. We like to joke we've been doing AI before AI was cool. BoodleBox emerged as a pivot a couple of years back when we saw generative AI kind of take the world by storm. We felt that there was a place, and now is the time to build a different type of AI platform, one that really focused on collaboration. And by collaboration, we mean how can multiple people, multiple AIs, multiple sources of information all work together responsibly. We just felt there's too much AI in AI, and we wanted to build an AI platform where the human was as equally important as the AI. And so BoodleBox, which originally began as, and it really is still a workforce first platform. It's a platform that anybody can use. I know members of your team use it. But it turns out that the collaboration piece has particular importance in the higher education space. And so that's why we decided to focus. And that only happened about 4 months ago.
And I'd love to unpack product philosophy as well as, I think, a degree of culture, because sometimes I found it can be difficult for a founding team to accept that there has to be a pivot. And so would love to get a sneak peek behind the veil as to how that process played out, and then how you guys subsequently engaged your buyers to confirm you're on the right track.
Yeah, so those are two separate but related questions. The first, I think you're really hitting at culture, right? How do you have a team that is comfortable with uncertainty? And so you have to build a culture that encourages people to be passionate, to be driven, but also flexible. That starts not on a PowerPoint slide that you show employees when they join your team. It really starts with who you even allow to join your team. Interestingly, I interview everybody who joins BoodleBox. We're a small team, that's not uncommon, but it's interesting the role I take. Other people confirm whether they've got the technical chops, they confirm their backgrounds. My job when I interview people is to tell them all the reasons they shouldn't join Boodle AI. Don't join if you're not comfortable with uncertainty. Don't join if what we do on Friday is different than what we're doing on Monday. Don't join if you're too scared to speak your mind and have others' minds spoken to you. And I go through this whole long list of reasons you shouldn't join the company. And one of two things happens at the end of that. Someone either says, actually, those are all the reasons I want to join Boodle AI, or people are like, you're right, I shouldn't join, and they opt out. And what I'm really doing is I'm screening for a cultural fit. And that has resulted in a team that is very aligned culturally, our values, our attitude towards work. Because as startups, people sometimes ask me, what's the formula for a successful startup? It's 1% idea, it's 49% team, and it's 50% execution. And the 99% of that, where team meets execution, the glue that holds that together is culture. And it wasn't anything I did in particular to make people comfortable with the pivot. Yes, there's the things you can do in terms of be transparent and explain yourself and build trust and all those things. But underlying all of that is building a culture the way you want around a set of shared values and making sure that people align with those values as part of the team. So that's the first part of your answer. Go ahead, Kristian. It sounds like you have something to add to that.
I was going to say, I think there are a lot of great takeaways. I think sometimes being direct is underrated, but especially in an early stage company where the stakes are different than in a more mature organization. Perhaps intuitive, but I don't know that everyone appreciates that every single person who fills a seat in a budding company absolutely makes a difference. And so being able to, flesh that out, I think extremely valuable. But let me let you continue, please.
Yeah, the second part of your question is, how did we know higher education was the right kind of beachhead audience to focus on? What do you want as a startup founder in terms of an ideal customer? You want a customer with a problem that you solve, that they're willing to pay to have solved, and is urgent to them. Your own business, full disclosure, we are a wonderful, happy client. We have problems all the time in the sense of we have to get our finances in order. We have bookkeeping and stuff, and FinStrat meets those needs, and those needs are urgent to us. Great client market services fit. An ideal customer has those three qualities, right? They're a customer, they're willing to pay, you solve their problem, and then most importantly, the problem is urgent. What we found in the AI space is, even though we're a workforce platform and we're used by thousands of users and hundreds of use cases and lots of organizations, by and large, AI is a nice to have. It's not a need to have right now, right? Whatever you're doing before AI, you're doing without AI. And so there's very little, maybe not anything at this point, that can't be, that you need AI for. Now, can you do it faster and better with AI? Absolutely. And that's why organizations of all sizes want to engage and find efficiencies with AI, improve their work. But it's not a need to have, it's a want to have. It's a CEO who's, I want to be an early adopter. It's somebody in the organization that says, hey, I want to try this. And what we found was, as we talked to organizations, they're like, BoodleBox is great. I love what you did. Gen AI is a priority, super important to us. Let's talk next quarter. And so they would say these things, but then their actions didn't follow. What we discovered, in other words, right, is the problem isn't urgent. The exception to that is colleges and universities. And their AI is an urgent problem. It is in the classrooms because of student adoptions. Faculty have to do something about it. They want to do it now. And there was also, we often hear about product market fit. There also needs to be founder fit, right? I've been a trustee of a university. I'm a visiting lecturer at West Point. I've spent plenty of time in a classroom. I knew of this problem firsthand. And so we knew that this was a good fit because, it's an urgent problem and it's one I had a background in. And then we went to validate that, right? We didn't just build something and throw it out in the world. I created a leadership council of almost 50 educators, thought leaders, influencers, asked them for their very candid thoughts on what needed to be built and why it needed to be built and what we were doing and what was right or wrong. And so we're very close to the customer here.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear you reinforce this idea that you absolutely have to know who your buyer is, what problem you're solving. And I also think the fact that you're highlighting that there's a return on investment. Students are using this, they're bringing in administration, college administration is not going to have really an opportunity to ignore it. So why not better than to participate? And I think, is it then fair to say that we use it for, as you pointed out, for product development purposes? And the old adage, two heads are better than one. We're finding it extremely convenient to be able to have different members of our team share the work. And I'm just curious then, so, it's been a while, but collaboration is supposed to be taking place in college. Did you just find that it was just this natural fit between the students and just this idea of, hey, we're already working on projects together?
Yeah, the key differentiator, right? What people often ask, like, well, what's the killer use case and what's the killer feature? Fair question to ask, right? BoodleBox is a multimodal platform. In other words, we offer access to a lot of AIs, and you can put in lots of different things in AI, different sources of knowledge, different files, images, whatever. That's not the differentiator. The differentiator is, in a single conversation, you can have multiple AIs and you can have multiple people. And that's the game changer, because in education, what has happened before BoodleBox is students would use AI, they would produce the product of that interaction and then show it to the professor. Well, the professor would have no idea what the student did. They didn't have any transparency into how the student used AI. And if you have no transparency, it's a black box. I can't grade it. I can't teach to it. It totally disrupts the learning process. We provide that transparency. When a student interacts with AI in our platform, whether it's one AI or multiple AIs, they can share that with another student or a professor, and the professor or that other student can see the entire interaction the student had with one or more AIs. And in fact, not just see it, but join into it. And so that allows this collaborative workspace where multiple students or a single student are in a space with the instructor or the faculty member and multiple AIs, and the faculty member can see what the student's doing. If I can see what they're doing, now I can teach to it. I can assess it. It becomes something that is part of the educational process instead of disrupting it. That's the critical thing we offer. That's the game changer.
To me, it seems like a no-brainer. And I want to ask about your sales and marketing strategy and how you're going to achieve reach. But before we do, I'd like to hone in on something you mentioned when you were talking about culture. This is your background. I think it would be valuable if you'd share with us what your career has been like leading up to Boodle.
Yeah, Kristian, I like to joke I'm unemployable at this point. I've been accused of professional ADHD. I'm an immigrant from Vietnam. I was evacuated when I was a 18-month-old, almost 50 years ago, from Saigon, just before communist forces took over. Growing up, I learned about my family's history, felt I had a debt to repay to the country in general, and the military in particular. So I was driven by desire to serve, like you were. Now, unlike yourself, I have bad eyesight and I'm a terrible swimmer. And so that limited my service academy choices. Could not go to Air Force, could not go to Annapolis. So I chose West Point, which turned out to be my first choice anyways. Graduated Ranger School, 5 years in active duty. Then I had my first career pivot. I went to law school. Actually had no intention of being a lawyer. I went there to kill time because I was hoping to join the FBI. As John Lennon once famously said, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. I ended up falling in love with the law. And so became a lawyer. Frankly, I'm not that great of a lawyer, but still ended up working in some amazing places, the Senate, clerk for a couple of judges, and then had an amazing opportunity to serve as an associate counsel to the president for 2 years under President Bush. After that, either because of a very poorly developed sense of self-preservation or a high tolerance for risk, I rejoined the military, recommissioned as an Army captain, and then deployed to Afghanistan with an Army Special Forces unit. In the same 6-month period, I went from picking out ties to go to the West Wing to picking out hand grenades on patrol in host province, Afghanistan. When I came back, then I became the start of my entrepreneurial journey, was a member of several amazing founding teams, Fluid Law Firm, MAG Aerospace, and then eventually Boodle AI. So that's been my journey.
Super impressive background. We could probably devote an entire podcast to what you've learned along the way. But for purposes of today, I would just love to know whether or not there are any key lessons, whether success or failures that you picked up along the way that have a material influence on how you run the company.
Yeah, there's so many lessons along the way. I think there's two things. One is I'll just return back to the word that I think motivates you, me, right? Service, right? Whatever you do in life, don't seek a life of success, seek a life of significance. Like success will follow, right? Do the things that you find meaningful and passionate. And if you do that, success is a byproduct of that. You don't have to chase success for its own sake. If you talk to any successful entrepreneur, they will invariably talk about their amazing team or their amazing customer or the amazing problem they're trying to solve. Rarely, I don't think ever I've ever heard somebody say, I chose to build this because I knew it was going to make a lot of money, right? Do the things you're passionate about. That'd be one. Second is there are many times in life where we have a choice between A or B, and A is safe and comfortable, B makes us uncomfortable, it's risky. As much as possible in life, choose B, right? Live a life. Jeff Bezos called it the regret minimization strategy. I call it the rocking chair test. Live the kind of life that when you're 90 years old, 100 years old, sitting in your rocking chair, that you have as few regrets as possible.
That's great. I think I've heard it say in a similar way, something along the lines of money is just a way to keep score. And so obviously there's there's value in creating a business that can employ a lot of people, and a great way to measure it, how much you raise or what the valuation of the company is, but 100% agreed. At the end of the day, it's what's the problem you're solving and how much value you're creating. And so with that, if we can come back to Boodle sales and marketing strategy, one of the biggest challenges founders have to contend with is how do you get the word out? How do you make the market aware of your technology? And knowing that you're focusing on college administrations, but without revealing any secret sauce, what sense can you give us as to how you're getting adoption and uptake?
Yeah, Kristian, I wish there was a secret sauce that I could hide from you, right? If life were just so easy, if go-to-market was just so easy that there was a sauce that you could pour out that solved your go-to-market problems. Unfortunately, there isn't. Know who you're selling to, know what their problem is, know what their pain points, their gain points are, right? Know where they get their information, and then try to be at the places where they're at. There's a reason why conferences and webinars are so popular. There's a reason why LinkedIn marketing is so popular, because you're trying to get direct access to that target audience you have. And the more specific, the better. Am I selling to colleges and universities, or am I selling to community colleges? Or am I selling to the CIO of community colleges? Am I selling to the CIO of community colleges located in the state of Texas because I'm TextRamp certified and I know they have budget? See how we went there from super general to like super specific? Now, I'm not saying more specific is always better, but the more focused you are, the more tailored your approach can be. And I guess the advice I would have, there is no secret sauce except for trying a lot of things, being data-driven, being willing to fail, but fail fast and learn fast, and then doubling down on what works. We're very fortunate. Our market is known, right? There's 6,000 colleges and universities in the United States. They all have provosts and deans and CIOs. At this point, that many of them have AI committees. So we know who we're trying to reach. We know where they generally hang out. There's the conferences and webinars and associations they're a part of. And we're starting to have what you really want, right? Which is organic growth that just happens, right? Referrals, word of mouth. In fact, I think that's how we found out about Finstrat. It was somebody told us about you all. I had a wonderful experience last week. I actually posted about it on LinkedIn. In a 48-hour period, 5 different university CIOs reached out to me out of the blue, and they just booked calls with me. And I asked, how did you hear about it? It says, I was in some group chat or I was in a webinar, and other CIOs said, yeah, we're trying out BoodleBox. And they just started talking about all the great reasons why we should try it out. So here I am reaching out. That's awesome, right? That's what you want to get to.
And I think it reinforces the point that you made about investing and being devoted to your solution that you're solving. Because when you do that, people are going to talk about, hey, there's an organization you need to connect with because our experience has been positive. One of the recurring themes on the podcast has been founder-led sales. You're serving as a CEO, for anyone who's been in this role, but even for those who had to use their imagination, there's a lot to do to run a company. Mm-hmm. And so would love your perspective on how you think about sales and marketing relative to all the other responsibilities that you have.
Yeah. So as a CEO, you can't expect somebody else to solve a problem you can't solve yourself. The first best salesman in a company should be the founder. For a couple of reasons. One is you've got to figure out all these motions. Who am I selling to? What's the pain points, the gain points? What's the pitch? What are the channels that work? You have to go in and get your hands dirty and want to get your hands dirty. It's awesome to get your hands dirty, right? There's going to be a time and a place, and I've been part of companies that reached 1,000+ people. There's a time and place where eventually you get more and more distance from that. But as far as a startup founder, you want to be as close to the customer and as close to prospects as possible. Not just because you got to figure out that process, but it also, if you're developing a product or service, that's how you get feedback, right? That's when you hear customers sell you like, no, I just wish your product did X, right? And sometimes if you have an intermediary, that might get lost on them. And so you need to be right there to hear that feedback. So I'll give you an example. We have over 110 universities and colleges doing pilots right now. We started late summer, early fall. We're now at the process of talking to them about, hey, it's gone. What do you think about buying? What do you think about purchasing a big license? And I was doing those pitches directly, and people were balking a little bit. They're like, we love your platform. and I would give them a price, and I could see the hesitation. And if I wasn't doing the sales, I couldn't get that immediate feedback. So I picked at it, like, what? I noticed the hesitation. What's going on? Look, that's a big number, and we don't know whether it's going to be worth it. And I was like, well, why don't you know it's going to be worth it? We don't know what the adoption is going to be. We don't know if 10% or 20% or 50 or 100% of users are going to use this, and we have a limited budget. I was like, let's solve for that. And so I talked to multiple CIOs, and we came up with a usage-based pricing plan that aligns adoption with costs. And the reaction has been phenomenal. People who were hesitant all of a sudden were like, this is doable. We could do this. This is great. But I needed to be in those pitches and in those sales calls to get that immediate feedback.
Yeah, no, I think it's great counsel. And it doesn't happen as often, where I find founders who are more quickly to delegate sales and marketing activity to a VP of sales. My experience has been identical. That, yeah, at some point the organization will grow to the point where it's just, hey, it makes sense. We have predictable streams of revenue. We've got product market fit. But until then, just being hands-on enables you to be a lot more nimble. You're more close to your client. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, it puts you in a better direction.
Yeah.
France, this has been an awesome podcast. Before we wrap up, I would love to get your perspective on, as you reflect back over your career, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Yeah, it's something I knew, but I had a hard time executing on. But in life, you often have a chance. There's oftentimes moments when you have to make a decision, and it's oftentimes in life we try to move away from things. Like, I don't like my job, so I'm going to quit it. But as much as possible, we should move towards things. So I don't want to quit a job because I don't like it. I want to move towards the job I want. Those are very different framings. So in life, I would tell myself, right, have an understanding of the things you want and try to move towards those things versus moving away from things you don't want. That makes us forward-linking. That makes us proactive. That makes us innovative in a way that looking backwards and moving away from things doesn't.
I think that's brilliant. I've heard it said a little bit different, but my experience has been the same. You can't practice detachment. You can only practice reattachment. And if you know you have something in mind, not thinking of that thing that you're doing doesn't work. Think about that vision that you have of where you'd like to be, and it's more likely to become a reality. France, this has been awesome. If you have any members or anyone out there who may be interested in joining the BoodleBox team, investors who'd like to learn more about the company, or university CIOs who should be using this product and want to talk to you, how can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm the only France Hoang, Hoang. You can contact me there, or just send me an email, france@boodle.ai.
Fantastic. France, thank you so much again for our audience. France Hoang, co-founder and CEO of BoodleBox and one of the founding partners of Fluid Law Firm. France, thank you.
Thank you, Kristian.
Kristian Marquez here. Thank you so much for listening to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. If you are a successful founder or an investor who would like to be on the podcast, please visit podcast.finstratmgmt.com/podcast-guest. If you've got something out of this interview, please share this episode on social media. If you know someone that would be a great guest, please tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Innovators and Investors. I'd love to see your posts and suggestions. We're regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you catch each new episode, please subscribe to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. And your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and it means a lot to me and my team. Would you like to know more? Go to our website, finstratmgmt.com, or follow us on LinkedIn or on X. Our handle is @finstratmgmt. This is Kristian Marquez. Thank you for listening. Until next time.